So if you're living in America currently, you'll probably be aware that if you go into any shops or, for instance, head into a gas station, there might be a little bit of a shortage of basically everything. Well, thankfully, Bloomberg is here with a solution. Don't worry about it. Just get less stuff. They've got here, it's conventional wisdom that the US economy is built on Americans' endless appetite to buy lots of stuff. Household consumption makes up 67% of GDP. When the economy falters, we're told to spending is our patriotic duty. But it doesn't have to be this way. We need to live more like Europeans. What that means exactly, I don't really know. And the actual article itself goes into a bit more detail saying Americans can't spend like they used to. Store shelves are emptying and it can take months to find a car, refrigerator or sofa. And we need to live more like the Europeans as a result. Now, see, the problem with that is I am not too adverse to the idea of people should stop being such mindless consumers. I think we should all do better to maybe keep a tighter hold on our wallets and purses and maybe not spend so much on meaningless trash that we spend a lot of money on in these sorts of times. But there's a difference between spending your money on random knickknacks and Ben and Jerry's, for instance, that you don't necessarily need, and being able to afford to buy and being able to find a fridge, for instance. Those are kind of more essential products that you need.
This is the issue I have with the Bloomberg article, because it's quite classist, because it's assuming that, household consumer spending is a frippery. And it's not. Yeah. Household consumer spending is people buying things that they essentially need to live. So cleaning products, food, all the rest of it.
Yeah, but there are questions of what's caused this, what have been the multi-layered factors that have gone into causing all of these shortages, and there are a few things that I personally would suggest, one being vaccine mandates causing people who don't necessarily want to get vaccinated to be forced out of their jobs and positions, and you can see it all the way from people in gas stations and nursing homes, all the way up to people in like the NFL and NBA getting forced out of their positions because of the fact that they've just decided, no, it's not for me, I don't really need it. And that's not to comment anything on the efficacy of vaccines or anything like that. That's just the mandates that have come about. And there's also supply chain issues, for instance. But we'll get into that in a moment. But it also sounds like the Biden infrastructure bill, which is coming forward, doesn't seem to be actually addressing anything regarding this. They're all just saying like, oh, here's this big infrastructure bill. The government will take care of everything for you. We'll nurture you. We'll take you under our wing. Yeah. You'll never have to fend for yourself or take responsibility for anything again. It's not helping.
Well, some of it will help, but the timescales are very long. If we're we're
and the amount
fixing
of money.
bridges and stuff, then that's a very long term solution. But I mean, a lot of this supply chain problem is a result of green policy and the chronic underinvestment in oil and gas, which the economy still needs.
We'll go into a little bit of that in a moment. And I also really hate the patronising tone that comes here. I mean, so far everything related to the Biden regime has been coming at the public with an incredibly patronising tone of voice. I find that doesn't sort of endear one to the person patronising them. It also comes across a little bit like a psyop. It comes across a little bit like the you will own nothing and like it mentality that we see spreading currently. If we move on, next here we can see Jen Psaki has insisted that the vaccine mandate will not lead to staff shortages. I mean, I don't know how you could back that up at all. From the article itself,
but it's already leading to staff shortages, particularly in healthcare, where people are needed so much, and apparently NHS or health.
We're seeing it in the UK at the moment.
Healthcare systems are so under stress because of coronavirus.
It won't lead to staff shortages, John has pointed out, if the businesses are already closed. Good point there.
But then there might be a shortage of things you need from that business.
Exactly. But yeah, what you were saying there, we've seen it in the UK already, that certain jobs that are becoming mandated that you need a vaccine to be able to perform your duties in, the nursing homes are struggling to be able to keep up the staff because loads of people who have got conviction for their beliefs are going, well, okay, no then. And then they're just leaving the job. Yeah. And then the nursing home is stuck without anybody to staff it, which is not beneficial for the people who need work and also not beneficial for the people that they're looking after. It's a bad situation all around.
The people who are being looked after are the worst affected, because if you're in a nursing home and you're having intimate care, it's not just something that you can get a temp in. It's not, you have a relationship with a person who's washing you and providing all that. And
Yeah.
these people are very vulnerable, and
And you don't want
to change. You don't want a stranger suddenly come in and like.
Yeah, they don't want to have to rebuild those relationships.
Yeah.
But yeah, this article goes into a bit more detail. The White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki on Friday insisted President Joe Biden's COVID vaccine mandate would not lead to staffing shortages as she returned to the briefing room 13 days after she tested positive for COVID. So, I mean, I'm sure she's vaccinated. She still had to take some
got
time
that
off.
natural immunity now.
Oh, yeah. But the Labour Department announced Friday that a record 4.4 million people quit their jobs in September, or about 3% of the nation's workforce. So when you put it into that 3%, it doesn't sound that much, but 4.4 million is a lot of people. I don't see how that won't be leading to certain sectors of the economy becoming understaffed. She also downplayed a question as to whether that number might increase if workers quit rather than get their COVID vaccine, a federal mandate that will go into place in January. I think that's the one where it's going to be any company that has over 100 employees, they're going to have to mandate it. She argued that many companies have already implemented a mandatory vaccine policy, such as McDonald's, GE, I don't know who they are, Google and United Airlines, and they haven't seen workers leave their jobs at all. Conveniently leaving out Southwest Airlines, which had a big strike on behalf of the pilots who didn't want to get the vaccines and didn't want to adhere to mandates. I believe did they end up getting their way?
I'm not sure, but it would certainly cause a huge amount of disruption to the services. And other companies, like my girlfriend just started a job, and she's like, even though they're working remotely, I think 4 days a week. They're still there's a vaccine mandate.
Yeah, and it's not helping businesses, and it's not helping people.
It's not helping.
It's not helping
it's
anything.
It's not helping the
really.
vaccine rollout, because I don't want to get a vaccine because they're forcing it on me. You know what I mean?
I'm of the same attitude personally.
It's like if I go into like a shop, I remember I went in to buy a car, and the guy, I was like, what about these cars? And he was like, no, you want to get this, you want to do that, and it's like, no, I asked you about this car. Like, but he's like, no, you want to get that, you got to get it on finance, you got to do that, you can. It's like, no, I told you, I've got the money, I don't want to get finance, I want to, just buy. Man, if somebody's trying to force something on you, we all know that can't, because if something's really good, people seek it out and get it themselves.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and then there's the way that the various ways the White House is trying to play off these shortages that are going on. So if we skip along, we've got a clip here of Jen Psaki trying to explain herself. If you want to play a little bit of this, John.
You said that it's a workers' market, that some industries need to create more competitive packages, that it's a good thing people have more choices. Is that your way of saying that the White House doesn't view this as a problem at all?
I think I also said in response to Weezu's question that there are some industries where we're seeing labor shortages. There are a couple of reasons for that. But some of the people, the workers, and we've seen this statistically and in a lot of surveys, many people across the country feel this is a good time to change jobs, right? To look for a more competitive job. What I'm saying is ultimately that's a good thing. It is challenging in certain industries.
If you want to stop that there. So that just says it all, really. They've found a way to try and twist the logic to say that people who are losing their jobs and causing shortages in these industries is a good thing. It means that other people can apply for those jobs. It's opening up the economy for people to be able to change jobs. Absolutely
That's
ridiculous.
An interesting interpretation. She should be in the prosecution of Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah, maybe. Then there's this from October where they were saying about how port issues and delays are causing supply chain issues that are resulting in a shortage of supplies, which is one of the reasons if you're in America, you might see some of these shelves in your local supermarkets not being stocked. And they make a statement here saying that the White House is prepared. It's not an issue. Don't worry about it. Stop asking questions. Pretty typical response from them. And they also make a notice of there's lots of different layers to these problems. There's lots of different layers. But isn't it interesting that a lot of these layers didn't really start to pile up, seemingly, until Biden stepped into the White House? It seems to have all started to factor in all at the same time. And then if we move along, we've got this article here. There is a record-breaking number of container ships reported clogging up the California coast. And this is from Wednesday. So they say here, container ships continue to clog up California's coast despite the Biden administration's efforts to alleviate the supply chain crisis. With supply chain issues growing and the holiday season approaching, California ports have become even more clogged with vessels. Several vessels have been forced to sit outside the port, waiting for their chance to unload. President Joe Biden met with several leaders involved in the supply chain process, and in a video posted, he claimed that things are improving and that people should not be worried about the coming holidays. I mean, given his level of organizational skills demonstrated up to this point, I I'm worrying a little bit. So, and then
Why do you live in California?
Well, I mean, if I'm worrying for the people in California and America, because it says here, Los Angeles and Long Beach's docking ports have been consistently packed despite a recently passed edict from the White House ordering ports to unload container ships 24/7. The two ports account for an estimated 40% of all shipping containers entering into the United States. So if you're in America, no matter where you are, this is likely to affect you because 40% of all ported goods come through California. Yeah, so this is a massive problem. They made the point, if you skip over, that renewables didn't cause any of these shortage issues as well. They were saying it was an issue with fossil fuels like oil and coal. But
that's why there's an issue with fossil fuels, because everybody's been focusing on renewables. There's been no investment. I've got shares in oil companies because I was like, man, like we're going to need oil for a while yet, and especially with renewables. I mean, solar's great when it's daytime. Wind power is great when the wind's blowing. But if you want to fuel trucks and stuff, you need oil. So yeah, basically because there's this underinvestment in oil, and like with the uptake in demand after COVID lockdowns ending, and the oil supply just wasn't there to rush back, especially with Russia sort of cutting supply to the West. So yeah, it's caused this real crunch, this real squeeze, as you can see when you go and fill up your car.
Well, yeah, in America, I'm pretty sure gas prices have been skyrocketing recently,
it'll still be about a fifth what it is in the UK.
I was going to say it's still putting us to shame, but they're still going up. And one of the ways that they've not been helping this was one of the first things that Biden did, of course, earlier on this year was stop the production of the Keystone pipeline that was going to be carrying oil from the straits in Canada down to America. Yeah, that's it.
And it was stopped because of environmental devastation that it would cause, but actually it would cause less environmental devastation than transporting the oil by truck. Yeah, because obviously transporting it by truck is inherently, or by rail is inherently. I mean, you're
going to be shooting more CO2, and you're going to be burning more fuel.
There's going to be more leakages. There's more contact points. So the pipeline totally made sense.
Yeah, if we move along as well, you can see them trying to address this. And if you want to play this clip, because we've got this clip here, John, it's a short one.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Two topics. I'll go quick. Is the White House rethinking their opposition to new pipeline projects since one really important one goes offline and gas stations start running dry?
I wouldn't say we look at it through that prism, Peter. We look at it, we analyze both the impact, the economic impact, as well as the environmental impact. And that will certainly remain the case, but we look at each pipeline project individually.
So that's a no. Basically what that is right there is a no. And then we've got this next clip here we can just play a little bit of, where she tries to put the blame onto other people for issues like the vaccine mandates and other such things. So if you want to play a little bit of this in regards to staffing shortages.
And do you know if this particular hospital might have been having staffing shortages because they have a vaccine mandate and maybe some folks have had to leave because they didn't want to get vaccinated?
I would love for you to account for me where that is the issue over more so than the number of unvaccinated who are filling emergency rooms, filling ICU beds. That is the problem in hospitals across the country. Go ahead.
Yeah. So she just completely skirts and deflects around the question right there. That's not what he asked. That's not the answer to what he asked. You asked him a question instead. Jen Psaki has this tendency, I've noticed whenever I've seen clips of her, to be asked a question she doesn't like, and she will smugly ask another question, like reframing it in another way.
Almost as if she's a politician.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, they've also got this. They've got the nurse shortages going on in America. If we skip along again, CBS, they're saying that we're doing everything we can using every lever. This was back from May. Every lever of government to ensure we reduce the impact on the American. It was the American government that's caused a lot of these shortages in the process. So maybe if you step back, it might help to alleviate some of the burden that people are experiencing.
And also, don't forget, the government thinks that these shortages are a good thing because the government is right behind the climate change agenda. So rising oil and gas prices, even though they harm the consumer and push families into poverty and push businesses out of business, they reduce the consumption of oil and gas, which is seen as a good thing. If you're a Washington elite, you don't care about people being forced into poverty. I mean, you pretend you care, but their main concern is like bringing down CO2 emissions.
Exactly. And then, if you skip along again, you can see it's gone from, this is also back in May. They're saying that at this point in time, I'll just reiterate, we don't have a supply issue. So the old tactic of just deny it's happening in the first place. If we skip along again, we've got more shortages of people because now it's not just affecting nurses and other such people, it's also affecting police officers and firefighters and other such people who are in positions, I would say, of utmost importance within society. I mean, this could be beneficial if you're an ACAB, defund the police kind of guy.
Yeah.
But it's not really great for anybody who, suffers in a neighborhood where there's a lot of crime, for instance.
Yeah.
We've seen this in Seattle. I covered this a few weeks ago, where 8% of the police and firefighter force have left recently as a result of the vaccine mandates, and they all left their boots on the steps of City Hall in protest.
Yeah.
I'm sure the White House would characterize these people as all evil. They're trying to hurt everybody by not sticking to our mandates.
Yeah.
What they did, instead of going to their job because they were kicked out, they all decided to go and feed the homeless instead.
Yeah, yeah.
What bastards,
Oh,
right?
yeah, the firefighters and stuff. As if, if you're burning, if you're in a fire, and
Yeah.
a fireman sends his ladder up to the 7th floor where you are, you're gonna be like, have you had your booster jab?
Yeah.
I'm not getting on the ladder unless you've had your booster
I'll take
jab.
my chances with the flames.
Yeah, I know I've been vaccinated and that protects me, but if you haven't had your booster jab, then
Yeah, but also, is it really great to let this sort of stuff happen in cities like Seattle, which had enough problems last year with everything that was going on? And then just finally, we had the former secretary during the Trump presidency, Sarah Sanders, saying that the Biden regime is an absolute and abysmal failure, saying that they're completely incompetent. The Biden administration is a complete and total failure, and the defining characteristic of the administration is incompetency.
Well, because Trump was completely incompetent, but that led to good government because he was so incompetent.
The government couldn't do anything.
Government couldn't function, which
Yeah.
is the perfect government.
That's
it's not getting
brilliant.
stuck in people's lives and causing problems. Because I've got to tell you, there's no situation that isn't made worse by government involvement. So with this administration, because they can actually do things, their incompetence has a measurable impact.
Yes.
They're actually sort of getting things
And
messed up.
just to leave it on what Sarah here has said, there's no doubt that everything happening in the Biden administration is a complete and total failure. And I've got to say, I agree. If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast Lotus Eaters, you can catch us live 1 p.m. UK time on our website. And if you'd like more from us, you can also subscribe to find some of our premium content.
Yeah, we actually have absolutely loads on there now because we're over a year old at this point. So we've got a massive library of content that you can't find anywhere else, such as our regular series, which are Contemplations and Epochs. Contemplations, we have philosophical and scientific discussions. And in Epochs, we have long, in-depth conversations about things that happen in history. This is one we did recently about the Nika riots, the absolutely brutal Nika riots in Constantinople. I really enjoyed doing myself. But we also have we also have loads of expert articles from people who know what they're talking about, such as this one talking about the misnomer of postmodern neo-Marxism. You may well remember Jordan Peterson getting castigated by left-wing activists for using the phrase. Well, it is a bit of a misnomer, but Thomas happens to be an expert in this subject, and so he takes you through it. And as you can see, there is a silver and gold tier member audio track that goes along with it. So if you don't want to have to read it, you can just listen to it instead. But we also have a bunch of premium podcasts that we can't really host on YouTube because of editorial guidelines, shall we say, such as Harry doing this excellent one, What Happened to the January 6th Rioters, and another one, in fact, that Harry and myself did about a whistleblower from a German public broadcaster talking about the COVID coverage and the particularly engineered narrative in which they can't talk about certain things. And so this leaves a bunch of questions up in the air, and we explore that. Again, editorial guidelines mean we can't really host that elsewhere. We also have a bunch of really excellent interviews. I did one recently with a chap called Philip Tanzer. He's if you're a men's rights activist, you may have heard of him because he comes out of that space, but he's also an ex-gay porn star who's turned conservative activist who has some very interesting opinions.
Very interesting trajectory to take.
Yeah, it's the sort of person you're probably not going to meet in your regular life, but he's a fascinating guy. He's a really nice chap. And also follow us on alternative media because, of course, we want to break the stranglehold of Silicon Valley over everything that we do. And this means that follow us on platforms like Ghetto, where you can follow Lotus_com to get all the latest updates from us. And also, we are speaking, or I am speaking, at a conference hosted by Getter at the London O2, the Indigo section of the London O2, on December the 8th. I'll be speaking there it's part of the Counterculture conference, where we're talking about why what is happening to the West is happening and what we can do about it. So part of that is following us on Getter and coming and see us, and of course, subscribe, because that keeps everything running.